Okay, so good evening, everybody. We're just doing a little bit of a sound check. Make sure you guys can see or can hear everything. And if you're on a computer, that you can see the screen. And if you don't have it handy, or if you have it possibly handy, but don't have it right by you, you may want to get your worksheet out because we will be going through that as we go through our presentation today. So you might want to have that handy. Okay, so welcome everyone, and I'm glad that you could make it. I'm Krista Strayer of Flourish Yoga and Flourish Schools. And if you'd like to surf while you listen, you can find out more about me at flourishyoga.ca. And it's my pleasure to be able to share with you a few tips on how to manage your energy better now that we are getting into that back-to-school routine. And these tips apply, of course, all year round, but sometimes it's good for us to have a trigger. So whether that's back to school or New Year's or after a holiday, or sometimes that surprise if you step on a scale, or just when you're done with being tired all the time or feeling mediocre all the time, or when you're tired that you can't keep up to the kids that you work with or that you have in your own family. So sometimes we just need something that makes us initiate a new change. So whatever your trigger is, take it as a blessing and move forward from there. All right. And if you have your worksheet handy, make sure that that's nearby you. And if you don't, even just a blank piece of paper, we're just going to go through the questions together and just have a spot so you can jot a few things down as we go along. But first, we'll do a little bit about how this all came about, and just to kind of put it all into context. So most of you know me from being a kids yoga teacher. I've taught in some of your schools, or you've done a Yoga Kids training with me, or maybe perhaps you've used some of my online resources out there for teaching yoga to kids. Or perhaps you know me from the family side and you and your kids have come to a community yoga class with me, or you've just searched and found this on the web. But what you may not know is that I'm a recovering engineer, I like to call it. And I spent 10 years working in the oil patch before back problems made working at a desk just intolerable. And B, I was really supposed to be a teacher. My dad was a teacher. So when I was about 5, my dad had built me a blackboard. Remember those things that made your hands all messy and got chocolate everywhere? But I loved to play school. And because I was older by a year or two from all the neighborhood kids, I always got to be the teacher. And so that was kind of as a young child, that was what I was going to be. But then as I approached university age, I saw how hard my dad worked and how thankless the job can be at times. And so somehow I ended up in engineering, which was good, but it was not really where my heart truly lay. And then the story started to kind of twist and to turn. And I found yoga when I was in severe chronic pain, and yoga gave me my life back. Yoga plus an angel of a massage therapist. We all need to have one of those in our lives, I think. But yoga enabled me to change that story and to start a new chapter. And once I found yoga, I just loved everything about it, and I wanted to share. And so I ended up volunteering in my kids' classrooms when I was doing my yoga teacher training, and I totally fell in love with working with kids. And being able to tap into their energy helped me to stay young, and being able to help at such a young age. This has the potential to make such a big difference when there is so much life ahead of them. So many of you on the call are teachers and likely feel that same drive. Parents too, we always want our kids to have better tools and better opportunities than we did. So I started teaching in schools and developing activities for teachers to use in their classrooms, which was great, but it was hard to add one more thing onto the teacher's to-do list without putting them into overwhelm. And yes, we know that yoga and meditation tools can be awesome in the classroom, but when do you slip that in when you're so overworked and so overwhelmed with everything else? And then alongside this, my business was flourishing. All sorts of great opportunities to teach everywhere from yoga for kids with cancer to different research projects and yoga for sports teams. There's everyone everywhere can have there's an opportunity there. But the busier you get, and as my kids age and the busier they got, many of you can see where this is going. I was just trying to help everyone else and not looking after my own needs. I was caught in the busy trap or the serving trap. So I was serving everyone else, and I was not looking after my own needs. And I found myself waking up tired, exhausted actually, and my joints were swollen and sore. I ate pretty well, and I did all this great yoga, but people would often say, you must be so calm all the time when you do so much yoga. And I would kind of smile and nod, but inside I was bone deep exhausted. The well was completely dry. But still you go on because people depend on you. So food. Let's touch on that just for a moment. Everywhere we turn, there seems to be advice on what foods we should eat. And even though I eat pretty well, depending on your perspective, I have one friend who is absolutely appalled that my kids don't know the McDonald's menu, and I have other friends who are total vegans and would be appalled that I still love my organic cheesies. My philosophy is that junk food is all right as long as you buy in the organic section. All right, so I'm definitely not perfect on any of those accounts. So I turned to Ayurveda and started learning what that could offer me. And now Ayurveda is that science and nutrition side of yoga. It's kind of the equivalent of TCM, which is traditional Chinese medicine, but it comes from India. And so through Ayurveda, I found out about this thing called ojas, which is essentially the juice or the nectar of life. And when our ojas is depleted, we have no reserves, so that any little stressor will totally wipe us out. And so after studying with Ayurveda with my coach for a couple of years and realigning myself to that natural rhythm of life, I slowly but surely built my ojas back up so that now I can get up at 5:30 and enjoy the beautiful sunrise. I can indulge in a treat without feeling completely guilty about it, and knowing that overall I'm eating what my body needs, and I'm doing habits and self-care practices to build up that ojas. And it's different from my husband and my daughters and what they need, particularly in terms of what we eat. It's not drastically different, but at least I know the things that I need to do and to eat to keep my energy up and what to steer clear of so I can avoid those energy plunges. All right. So it was at this point that the light kind of finally clicked on, and that this is what teachers and parents really need. So in the Eastern cultures, they have a philosophy that if you nourish the mother, the child will thrive. In fact, after giving birth, the mother's feet barely touch the ground for about a month, and support comes in, usually her family, to look after everything so that she can recover. And guess what? The baby thrives. And so we tend to have it in reverse in our culture. We focus all this attention on the child and we deplete ourselves. And the more and more we do that, the kids are not any better off because we are not any better off. And I see this all the time when I'm in schools working there. The kids are so tuned in to what their teacher's energy is. It's like that mirror reflected back. And sorry, parents, but kids spend likely as much or more time with their teachers than they do with their parents. But the same does hold true for our own kids. Ever notice that when you have a bad day, it just goes from bad to worse as the kid's energy builds up on that? So the key is that we need to nourish our teachers so the students will thrive. So how do we do this? Teachers just need more ojas. The biggest difference I feel that I can make right now for kids in schools is to nourish and support their teachers. And this totally fits for me. The circle comes around again. I always felt that I was meant to be a teacher from the beginning, but didn't because of my dad's overwhelm. And now I get the chance to support teachers and the amazing work that they do from the back door and helping them with their overwhelm. So now Flourish Schools and Flourish Families has a way to support the adults in the system, the teachers, the parents, and the administrators, so we can create that whole circle for a school to flourish. So we're living in this era of I'm too busy. We end up being too busy to feel things, too busy to reflect on what we feel, and so we push away. There are so many people that depend on us as teachers and parents that we don't have time to look after what our needs are. So we end up depleting our reserves as we serve. We feel overwhelmed. There's so much to do all the time. Everywhere you look around you, there's likely something that needs to be done. And so how do we shut that off? We feel tired. Some days we're bone deep tired. With so much to do each day, we don't wind down properly. And then when we get to bed, it's either really late and we crash, or we get there and can't turn the voices off. So all of which fuels this busy trap because it ends up taking us longer to do things because our mind is not focused and clear and our bodies are simply tired. Plus, we tend to be undernourished by our food. With all the advice and the mistrust with our food sources, when we eat even the healthy things, our minds won't let the food truly nourish us. And then there's the unhealthy things that we reach for to fill a gap or a need. The I'm so tired, so I eat. I'm sad, so I eat. Do you ever get that voice mid-afternoon? I need chocolate. I need a cookie. And do we really? We just ate lunch, right? But we do need something. We are looking for something. And when we don't listen to what we truly need, this just fuels a cycle of overeating, and further unhappiness. So we may think it's honorable to be busy and not take time for our needs, but at the end of the day, we are not serving anyone, and we lose the joy of the moment. We're not able to be fully present for the joy that's in our lives. So let's just take a moment to reflect just who we are now and how we feel now. So if you can, just close your eyes and just practice feeling inside and tuning in. What is your energy like? So can you go inside and just sense what is that level of reserve that you have? And hopefully if you're coming off summer holidays, it's pretty high. But you know what that will feel like when you start to hit Halloween and Christmas time. And just sense in right now, what do your muscles feel like? What do your bones feel like? What does your head and your brain feel like? Is it fuzzy or clear? And what does your belly feel like? How nourished do you feel by your food? And just sense into that. And how deep is the well in your serving body? And then you can just slowly open your eyes. And if you haven't already filled that out on your worksheet, you can fill that first section in. So in that box where it says, right now, I am a person who feels like. Just make a couple notes as to what your energy is like and your body feels like. Then your thoughts, your brain power. Do you feel stiff and sore? Do you feel tired or relaxed and calm? Just note what that is. And then what does this end up costing us? So those things that you feel in your body that aren't quite up to par, what does that do down the road? So first of all, in our health, we want this body to support us so we can enjoy retirement, and that needs to start now. We need to make those changes now so we can get to that point and still have joy and ease with our body. How about medical expenses and the prescriptions that mask what's really going on inside? What will this cost you in your family time? Are you truly able to enjoy the time you spend with your own family at night? Or are you too tired at the end of the day to cherish those precious moments? Are you irritable and push others away? This is a sign of what we call vata imbalance, when you feel rough and cold and alone instead of sticky and warm and close. It's hard to be nourished by others when we push them away. about your brain? Does it feel fuzzy? Are you making the best decisions and functioning at your peak? Not likely if you're sleep deprived or just deprived in general. And financially, just besides the medical expenses and the therapist bills, what about your career? And are you truly able to take on that challenge and feel good about what you do there and be compensated for that? Do you spend money that you don't need to? Again, filling that void. Some of us eat, some of us shop, and some of us do both. So what is it truly costing you and your family? And so there is a way through this, right? There is a way to realign ourselves to a natural rhythm and feel supported and nourished. And it's not hard. It does require commitment, and it may require some support, but the rewards are super sweet. And part of the solution is just being aware, understanding our natural inclinations and the cues that our bodies give us, and just listening inside to that voice again. So let's just sense into that now. So I want you to sit up nice and tall, or stand. If you're standing, just make sure your spine is nice and erect. Just ground yourself through your feet, uncrossing your legs if they're crossed. And then just take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. And with each breath in, just know that you are building your energy reserves up. So I want you just to take several deep, slow breaths in and nice, long, complete breaths out. And imagine that you can see the well inside of you being filled up again. And just sense inside and feel deeply nourished. Feel that nourishment coming from deep inside of you. Feel supported all around you. Feel that energy deep within and then project that into the future. How different would that look like for you? How do you want to feel in your body? Do you want to feel energized for a new day, up for anything, so you can keep up with your kids and your students? Do you want to feel nourished by food? Lighter, energized, alive? Do you want to feel wise and grounded and even-tempered, with better clarity of thought? And you can just slowly open your eyes. You can go to that next box on your worksheet and fill that in. I want to be the person who feels like. And what is that goal for you? Do you want to be living in balance? Do you want to be more energized or light? Or simply you feel like you could live past 100? Okay, so I'm curious about what you sensed in these two exercises and what's the growing edge that you are facing. And where do you want to feel different between where you are now and where you want to be? I want to just kind of sense into that and get a feeling for who we have in our group today. So I will, if you want to unmute yourself when you want to speak, feel free to do that. And Claire, I have you muted, so I'm just going to unmute you, and then you can share when you want to there. So do you have a volunteer who wants to go first? This just helps our group to kind of connect together.
Hi, it's Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi. So right now, with work, feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I'm teaching a new class. We have a new principal who has come in and has given us some new rules and whatnot. So it's kind of a little overwhelming for coming back to school. And I noticed there's a whole bunch of us feeling the same way. On the first day of school, teachers have actually started counting how many days left till the end of school.
Oh, that's sad.
Which isn't very good for the first day of school.
No. No, it's not
So,
setting a good example, too, for the kids.
no. And everybody's trying very hard to make sure the kids don't feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as teachers, we're feeling overwhelmed. We kind of it's feeling a little overwhelmed for the first day back to school, or the first week back to school.
And can you sense that or feel that in your body and where that gets targeted in your body?
Oh, definitely. Upper shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking up until I went on holidays. I would get up and walk for an hour to 2 hours every day.
Mm-hmm.
And this week I was able to get up the first day, and now I wake up and I don't even want to get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really bad because I find that the walking really helps me. That's kind of my quiet time and my regrouping time, and I don't even have the energy to do that.
Right. Yeah. And so where do you want to feel? Besides your walk, and just being able to have the energy to do that and feeling like getting out of bed, is there something else that you want to feel?
I just want to be, I don't want to feel so exhausted when I'm coming home after work. Mind you, it is it's my third day at work this week, fourth day at work this week. But I'm coming home exhausted. Like, I'm ready for a nap when I get home at 3:30 or 3:45.
Right.
So I don't want that. I want to feel more energized. And, I get up and I put a smile on my face, and somebody said this morning, "Why are you so happy at 8:30 in the morning?" And I said, "Well, the sun is shining. It's a great day." I said, "It's a new day." And I said, "Hey, I woke up this morning." He says, "I'd rather be grumpy." But I like being happy and smiling and energized. So that's how I want to feel.
Right. Happy, smiley, and energized. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Sherry.
Thanks.
Okay. Susan, do you want to chime in there?
Sure. I'm sorry to hear that, Sherry. I feel really bad for you, and I hope that your school year gets a lot better. Right now, I've made some really good changes over the summer, diet-wise. I've been on a cleanse. Tomorrow's my last day of a 30-day Candida cleanse, and I'm feeling really well. But I am noticing the tiredness setting in and thinking ahead to, October and November, and thinking I'm already tired of making lunches and coffee for the next day and all that stuff that comes with a new school year. And when I did the second exercise and did the deep breathing, I could feel the energy returning and the calm returning. And I want to be that strong, nourished, balanced, full of energy person that I felt when doing the second exercise.
Strong, nourished, and full of energy. That's great. Good. And Susan, are you a teacher or a parent?
I'm both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. I like those words. Strong, nourished, and full of energy. Awesome. How about you, Claire? Do you want to pop in there?
Sure. Today we had a PD session, so we don't actually start till next Tuesday, which is good.
Well, you know what? I can just barely hear you. I'm just going to turn my audio up a little bit. Okay. Try that again.
Is that better?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
So what I was saying is that we had a PD session today because we don't start till Tuesday.
Okay.
I think it was interesting listening to the other people who were on here, and I think one of the things that I'm hearing is the idea of people feeling tired and depleted and all of those things, and I think there's things that I think I'm doing that are good. I just think I need to do them more often. And I think one of the things that you pointed out is the idea that you have to take care of yourself. I'm going to use the word as a caregiver before you take care of anybody else. And I think that's something that's really overlooked both in education and also as being a parent, because you always want the child to be more successful. And sometimes that becomes a detriment to you. So I think that's one of the goals that I'm going to set for myself this year, is to make sure that I'm doing the things that is going to make me a happy and healthy teacher and parent at the same time, I guess.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard, right? We kind of know what we need to do, but getting that into that routine of getting them, in place is harder than it should be, right?
But I think it's also one of the elements of being a teacher is that you do become a bit selfless. And I think that there's a difference between being selfless and self-preservation. And I think at the end of the day, you can't serve anybody if you're not taking care of you. And so to me, what you were talking about, that sort of rang very true to me. So I think that's something that I need reminding of, but I think everybody does need reminding of as well.
Right. Yeah. No, it's hard. It doesn't seem like, it seems that our needs always go last.
Mm-hmm.
Right, when you're that caregiver in all the different roles, and likely a lot of us are caregivers in several different formats, right, both as a teacher and as a parent and as a spouse and as a child sometimes, right? It all gets kind of lumped in there, and we never don't tend to put ourselves ever to that forefront. So yeah. Good. And so is there a feeling, Claire, that you want to dive into? Like, how do you, when you see yourself as being, taking care of yourself, how do you sense that to feel in your body? What does that look like?
I think I'd like to be energized and calm at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of feeling sort of burnt out and tired is something that feels very familiar, and I think getting into feeling more energized and sort of just calm, I think, would be great, because I think unless you feel calm and energized, you can't think clearly, and you can't do all of the things that you need to do unless you've got those pieces in place.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny how much the energy of people around us will feed off that, right? So if you guys can start to support yourselves, and even Sherry, as you mentioned, I think it was Sherry that talked about how you are smiling in the staff room at the beginning of the day. It does, some people may, deride it at first, but it does make a difference to those around us as well, which just helps to bring up the whole level of everybody that's surrounding us. And it makes our job easier than as a caregiver, the more that happens as well. Good. Is there anyone else that would like to share on the line? I get to see a few of the names, but I don't always get to see everybody's name that calls in. Okay. So let's just move on from that, from those places, and give you some tools and tips of how that's going to work. So there is a way out of this trap, right, and this feeling of overwhelm and exhaustion and depletion. And it's almost as simple dialing it back, or type of attuning ourselves to that natural rhythm of life so that we can feel more connected with the world around us, with earth and with nature. We can feel more well-rested and just nourished. So nourished by our food and nourished by our self-care practices. So anytime we try something new or make a big shift, our brain does not like change, right? Plus, as humans, we are programmed to stay with the status quo. so to stay with the group. So to get around that amygdala or our instinct brain, we're going to try to trick it through tiny little shifts. So nothing too radical, just slow, steady progress. The big benefit of this is we also get to enjoy that taste of success. So when we do tackle things really simply in a way that we can actually do it, we get to enjoy that feeling of accomplishment. We get the endorphin rush from that. No matter how small it is, it still works. So the other way that our brain is wired is to be part of a group and not stand out. So we'll create our own little group of people doing the same thing. So you can sense into the power of this group. So even if you're listening into the recording later, it still works. You still get that support as there are others doing the same thing that you are. There's others that are on the same path. So how do we go from A to B? How do we go from where you are now to where you want to be? And there's several different basic areas that we can focus on. And when I work with people, we tend to go through 10 different habits. But for today, we're going to start with 3. 3 of the most key areas that I find make a big difference in getting our lives turned around and back on track. Okay, so the first one of this is our simple habit number 1, and it's just in bed by 10. So we're going to start at the end of the day, because once we get this on track, we'll have more energy to tackle other areas. So in your pre-worksheet, I had you write down, if you had a chance to do that ahead of time, when do you go to bed at night and what time do you get up? And you might already be a rock star on this one in terms of timing when you go to sleep. I know there's lots of teachers that I work with that just have to be this way because there's no choice but to get up in the morning. You have to be to work on time. But I also had you take note of whether or not you feel well rested. So how would you rate the quality of your sleep? On a scale of 1 through 10, what does that look like for you? Just take a moment to sense into that. When you woke up this morning, how did that feel? Did you still feel tired? Or were you energetic and ready to go? And part of the equation here is math, like how many hours of sleep do you get? But the other part is rhythm. In which hours do you get? So you may have heard that an hour of sleep before midnight is worth 2 hours after midnight. But why is this? Right? So when we tap into the Ayurvedic daily rhythm, we find an answer. And I won't go into deep detail onto this because that could be a whole hour lesson in and of itself. But basically the time between 10 o'clock and 2 at midday and at night is our pitta time, what we call. It's the time for digestion. So it's the time to digest food, thoughts, ideas, emotions, all of those things that we just need to process within our body. So if we are not in bed before midnight, we miss out on half of this key processing time, and our sleep is not nearly as restful as it could be or really should be. So to start off, I want you to look at what time you currently go to bed. If it's already before or by 10 o'clock, that's great. We'll get back to you in a minute. If it's after 10, we're going to look at slowly migrating to this point. And I know there's a lot of reasons, aka excuses, why you can't, right? We call this resistance. And resistance is good. It shows us that we are on the right path. So all I ask of you this week is to go to bed, say 15 minutes earlier. And if 15 seems overwhelming, if when I said that went, can't do that, dial it back to 5 minutes earlier. What we want to do is make it really easy. So simple, so easy that it's not a problem to do it. And so you can write that into your sheet there as to what your new bedtime is going to be this week. What is that number going to look like for you? And then for the optimizing, if you're already in bed early but not waking refreshed, this is where your optimizing point comes in. And this is also the how-to for those that are changing the bedtime habit. So just going to bed or lying in bed awake will not serve you, right? We need to calm the mind and calm the nervous system. So we need to tune our bodies in and get them ready to lie down. It's not an instant on-off switch in the super stimulating world we live in. So to prep your body, there are some basic nourishing things that we can do. So one is just to go to your room earlier and just to start the wind down process. And I'm going to send you a couple links after our call, or probably tomorrow morning, with some info and resources on this. One thing you can do when you get to your room is just to do a few quieting yoga poses. So think yin yoga, which would be like legs up the wall, perhaps bridge pose on a bolster or block or pillow. This is really helpful if you're bending forward or find that your shoulders roll forward. If you can just reverse that back and lie over a pillow so your shoulders are on the floor and your body's up a little bit higher, that can be a really relaxing thing to do and just helps to open up that heart area for us as well. Other things that work to kind of help to tune us down and to calm us down can be using essential oils. So you can use something like lavender or cedarwood or frankincense and just rub them into the bottom of your feet. And then from there it gets absorbed into your bloodstream and helps to calm you down. Or you can do a whole foot massage with oil and add a couple of drops of essential oil mixed in. And I just had a blog post on this a couple weeks ago, so I'll send you the link on that one as well, to how to kind of nourish yourself through that way. Another thing to do, and you've probably heard this one before, is don't read on a lit screen. If you've got a black background on your e-reader, that's great, or read an actual book. And this can really actually make a difference. I know there's a lot of difference of opinions on there, but for me, I find it really does work. I'm a reader. I have to read a little bit every night before I go to bed. That's just part of my routine. No matter how tired I am, I have to pull out the book. And whether I read a paragraph or several chapters, it kind of varies. But I do find if I get to that point where I'm reading several chapters, I'll all of a sudden realize, oh, I've got that white screen on or this up-here screen. And if I flip it over to the black screen, I'll be out within a few paragraphs. So it does make a difference there, I find. But basically what I want you to do is just to take some me time. And I know that if you've got small kids, it's hard because they likely just got to bed and you've got a list of things to do. But if you do go to bed, tomorrow you'll be more productive. And you'll think clearer, and it just sets you up on a more sustainable path. And even with my older kids, they don't get home until after 9:30 some nights. And so, because they're involved in different sports and activities. But I've had to really set aside this time. And so I've had to delegate to my husband that he's in charge of the late nights. And what I found is that even though I'm doing this for me, the kids will come in and wish me good night. They'll see me in my PJs getting all relaxed. And what I'm doing is leading by example. So they sense into my feeling of wind down and relaxation, and the house ends up quieter, and everybody gets to bed earlier. So I want you to go back to your worksheet, write down what time you're going to commit to being in bed, lights out, and only go 15 minutes earlier. Don't go more than that. So take it really slow. So between, say, 5 and 15 minutes earlier, find what time you can commit to. And then write down one thing that you also commit to for your quiet time. So it could be a relaxing yoga pose, a foot massage, 30 minutes of reading or a few minutes of reading, some evening meditation, and you can write down how long you want to do that for. An Epsom salt bath is really grounding and relaxing, especially if your muscles are sore and tired. That can be a really great resource and great way to get through that. But just do one thing that you can be consistent on, because we're trying to create routine. So I know it's an interesting list, and we probably want to try a whole bunch of different things. You can have a cup of tea or journal or all sorts of things that can work in there. But we don't want to do a different thing every night. So pick one thing for this week, and then next week you can pick two things and just stack them together, but make sure you do the same things consistently. So we want to treat ourselves as a toddler. So what works for them works for us too. So perhaps if you've raised young kids, remember that sweet spot of getting your toddler to bed. And if you miss it, you're in that overtired realm, and good luck, right? And we are no different. If we ignore that cue in our body of when we are tired and don't honor that, it's so much harder to get to that deep, restful stage. So number one, I just want you to be aware this week of what your body is telling you. See if you can sense into that natural time your body wants to go to sleep. And then I want you to create this routine that helps calm our nervous system so that whatever you do, and try for consistency, your goal can be 3 to 5 times this week. We don't need perfection. We just want to be going in that right direction. All right. Does anybody have any questions on that? Or things to add, or things that kind of popped out for you? Okay. So we can come back and you can share some things afterwards, but let's keep going for now and go on to our habit or tip number 2. So our simple habit number 2 is to wake up and move. So mornings are a really precious time. And not just because you're hanging on to sleep and don't want to get out of that nice comfy bed of yours. So we're working on getting that in place and that natural rhythm of going to bed earlier. But now that we go to bed earlier, we also can start to get up earlier. We've carved out time on the other side. So remember that the hours before midnight work better than the hours after midnight. So we get double our money back. And so optimally, you should rise before the sun. And so here in Canada, that really varies a lot throughout the year. So we tend to kind of average that out at 6 a.m. So if we can rise before this time, we enter into that sacred spiritual time of the morning, a place for deep thoughts and deep connection. It can be really valuable just to kind of building up our resources, just to have some me time during this period. And Sherry alluded to having a walk in the morning, which is just the perfect time to go and do that. Walking can be grounding. It helps just that motion within our body is really grounding on our nervous system, plus being outside in nature. And there's that aspect of working or just moving, getting the body moving early in the morning makes a big difference to what our energy level will be through the day. And so on your worksheet, you wrote down what time do you regularly get up? And so if you're already up before 6 a.m., that's great. Just hold on. We'll get to your optimizing point in a moment. If you are later than 6, and ideally this is rising without an alarm. So your body just naturally waking up on its own. And then we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to start just backing this one up. So 15 minutes might be too much. It might be 5 minutes earlier for a few days a week, and then back it up to 10, and then up to 15. Somehow that morning wake up is a little bit harder to move than going to bed. So make it as easy as you can and succeed. So no stressing out about it. So that first step is just to get up a little bit earlier. And when you achieve that, or if you're already an early riser, we're going to use this time effectively to get you moving and feeling more energized all day. So it doesn't have to be a 10K run, right? It can be, especially in the summertime. That's a nice, cool time of the day for you to run and to exercise, especially if you have a driven nature. So people with a driven nature in Ayurveda, we call them a pitta. And so if you exercise hard in the middle of the day, that's really hard on a pitta system. So mornings can be really beautiful for that. But it can also be much simpler than that. It can be 3 sun salutations. It could be 5 standing poses. It could be just a simple little routine of like cat and cow stretch and then reaching down for your toes and ragdoll or uttanasana, however you want to call that one, and then stepping back into a nice strong warrior 2. That might be enough just to start getting your circulation going, at least to start off with. Anything you do will be better than just feeling sluggish. So a morning stroll with the dog around the block, or even just outside the door where you do a couple spinal twists, just start really small. And so with your follow-ups from this, I'll send you a little quick cheat sheet with a 5-minute yoga routine in it. So that could be something that you could add into your day if you're looking for ideas. And this all varies depending on where you are at right now. So if you already wake up and move, you can go that next level and add in a meditation practice or journaling time, or even just a quiet, reflective oil massage on the hands and the feet. So because this is one I find there's a lot of variance within the group, you just need to find the level that you're at and look at where your growing edge is. So on your worksheet, just write down what you will commit to this week for your wake up and move. And select how many days you can do that. Can you do it for 3 days or 5 days? Make sure to give it a bit of wiggle room so that you succeed. You could always get bonus marks, but we just want you to have that feeling of success. You just want to start to get the body moving and the heart pumping. So what can you do? What's that first thing that pops into your mind that's going to do that for you this week? Okay, on to simple habit number 3, the earlier, lighter dinners. So food can be a huge minefield these days. So do you have a label? Are you a paleo, a vegetarian, a vegan, a gluten-free? And around here, I just encourage you to drop the labels. Everyone is different. And I want you to be connected to what your body needs. Your body, not your emotions, right? And tap into what you need and be nourished by that. So regardless of what food you eat, and there is some differences in terms of how alive your food is and so forth. But for right now, we're just going to start with whatever you're eating. One of the biggest shifts that you can make in your wellness journey is to eat dinner earlier. So having your main meal and protein at midday is optimal, but I know it's not always possible. Although there are a lot of teachers that I see in staff rooms that are taking full-size lunches with protein as their lunch, which is great to see. The part I don't see, of course, is if their dinner is even larger or if it happens very late at night. But that is a possibility, to take that as your lunch going to school and get that full sense of nourishment over that lunch hour break. So if you can eat your main protein at midday and have a lighter dinner at, by 6 o'clock, that's optimal for your body. It's optimal for your digestive system being able to absorb the nutrients, and it also lets your body process a little bit easier, a little bit better. So if you're eating your main thing at lunch, your body can be done that main sense of digestion before you go to bed. And then as you go to sleep, your body is able to process other things besides food. So they can start to process your emotions and your thoughts and all those other things that need to get sorted away. And so on your handout, you listed what time do you eat dinner. And just look at that number. Is it before 6 o'clock? You get bonus marks there if it is. If it's after 6 p.m., we're just going to look at slowly shifting this earlier. And resistance, I know, is going to jump in here. My kids have sports, right? They're not home till late. Or I get home and I need to relax before I can start preparing, and it all takes so much time. So this is where lighter becomes key and simpler becomes key. So if you can put in a soup or a stew in the crock pot before you leave in the morning, then it's going to be all ready when you get home. Or set your oven timer so it's ready when you get home as well. And if you've got nice weather happening, those big 30 degrees days that are happening out east, you can have a big salad. It's super easy to put together. You can even have some of it pre-chopped and just put some lemon juice on it or something so that it stays fresh for when you want to eat it. If your kids go right to sports or after school, the kids are super, super hungry and then they have a big snack. And you've probably noticed that as soon as kids get home, they're hungry, right? They've got to eat. And maybe you do too, right? So if we can cut out the snack and make that dinner and then have a lighter snack later if you need to. So one of my favorite things to do for this evening meal is what we call a glory bowl or a Buddha bowl. Different recipe blogs have different names for it. But it's super easy to have ready for the kids. Sometimes even when I have to take them right to their sports activities, I just have the rice or the quinoa heated up in a thermos and all the other fresh vegetables on the side with the sauce, and you just toss them together and they can eat it kind of on the go. But it's also easy to digest because everything gets sliced up small, and it's very simple food. We don't always need a huge variety of food at one sitting because this sometimes just makes it harder to digest and harder to prepare. So keep it simple. Keep it easy on yourself. And your family needs might be different. What you need to eat or what you feel like eating might be different from somebody else in your family, say your spouse or your kids. And that's okay. If you can start to prepare meals that can adapt to that. So the glory bowl, you just add in whatever things you need to put in there or the things that you like to eat. Or taco night, lets every person just kind of add in what they need to eat that day. Plus, some of these can handle different eating times, if that's the reality in your house. If you want to eat earlier for you and try this experiment and see if it makes a difference, then do that. And then sit down and enjoy a cup of tea later when your family eats. So we need to look after you. So we can shift our story, we can shift our practices, and we can find ways to do that, looking after your health. Dinner doesn't have to be the big family dinner that we kind of tend to have that perception of. It can be a simple soup night. It can be something that's really, really easy. You still have that benefit of being together as a family, perhaps, but it doesn't have to revolve around the food. It can revolve around the conversation and just that act of being together. So for this, being prepared is really key. If you know what's going to happen ahead of time, this calms down that resistance brain. And also, if we have the right food in the house, it's going to make it possible to actually happen. So just take a moment to brainstorm what simple meals you can make this next week that will help you eat a little earlier and perhaps a little lighter. And then you can fill that in at the chart on the bottom of the page. Now you game to try out a glory bowl or a Buddha bowl, or just taco night sound like a fun option, or even just those fresh pastas that you can toss into the boiling water and they're ready in 6 minutes. They're quick and easy and fresh. You can add it with a big kale Caesar salad. Or maybe you're starting to crave that nourishing sweet potato stew that you can put in the crock pot, or a simple stir fry. What comes to your mind as a food that will nourish and satisfy you this week? So I'll just give you a moment just to fill that in, jot down what your ideas are. Maybe some days carry over from the day before to make it even easier. And then all of these might just seem super simple. Like, how is this really going to help me? Just going to bed 15 minutes earlier, is that really going to make a difference in how I feel? But it does. I started adding in some of these Ayurvedic tips into it's just a 1-week session when I do a kids yoga career coaching. And the groups loved it. I knew at that point that this is not just me, that these tips and habits can really make a big impact and really help a lot of us. And now these are full-time yogis. Even as yogis, there is a piece missing in the puzzle. Just yoga alone won't build up your ojas. Especially if you're type A like me, it can actually start to deplete it when you take it too far. So I'm going to introduce you to Kara. And Kara is one of the teachers that I worked with, and she's actually a school teacher, a preschool special needs teacher. She's a kids yoga teacher and a mom. And so here's Kara here. She's got her picture. And I was talking to her this summer, and she shared with me that out of all the things that we had talked about in that 1-hour lesson, she chose one to focus on. And the one she felt resonated with her and that would be attainable. So she decided to go to bed by 10 o'clock. And she started just winding down a little bit earlier every day, each week, just winding that bedtime back a little bit. And she focused on this, and she took her sleep from around a 5 to a 7 in just about a month and a half. So think about how much clearer your mind would be if you could attain those 2 percentage points better. Just feel what that fuzzy 5 brain would be, to that 7 brain where you start to feel hopeful and just better able to cope. And so for Kara, it's given her the extra energy that she needs to start a whole new business venture, plus go back to teaching part-time as a sub. So it's been able to enable her to achieve those dreams. So even the smallest shifts that we make can ripple forward to make a significant impact on how great we feel. In fact, it's the small ripples that we are after. We want those super small changes, the ones that are easy and fly under the radar of our amygdala, so we don't stress ourselves out in this. So for me, I was a real night owl. My sleep a year ago was likely a 4, although I didn't even really realize how bad it was until I actually started getting some sleep. So I made the effort during a group cleanse and a habit-changing program last year to get to bed by 10. And so the 9:30 wind down was key for me. I need at least 30 minutes to transition. Before, I was on the computer until 10, in bed by 11 or 12, but not sleeping until way after midnight, because this was my time to read, or what I considered to be my time. And now my wind down, plus a few other nourishing Ayurvedic daily habits, feed this need. And so I go to bed and I get right to sleep. I naturally wake up around 5:30 on most mornings and have a new love of that peaceful early morning hour. And I find my days to be much more productive, so I don't need to work on the computer until late, or I don't get caught up in the late night surfing if you just stay on there. The other thing for me that was key and is still key is the wake up and move. If I can get up early and kind of get myself out of bed at that 5:30 mark or the 6 o'clock mark, and then just immediately go and start to move, I will have so much more energy throughout the whole day. It really makes a big difference in how I can function. And most importantly, I'm able to make better decisions overall, which then compound into feeling way better and then just being able to sleep deeper. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of health and feeling positive and happy instead of that downward spiral into feeling lethargic and tired and then, somewhat depressed at times. So I don't feel overwhelmed with helping others all the time anymore. And that's still my main focus, of course, being a mom and a wife and a yoga teacher. But now I'm not so caught up in my head. I can feel what my body needs, and I can take a few minutes each day to look after myself. In fact, I crave it now, so I know it's going to happen. And I still stay connected with the group that I worked with, the ones that helped me get to this point and continue to push my edge to feel even better each day. And now all of you will become part of my support group, whether you know it or not. We'll all help each other kind of go further on this path, just by being in the same sense of awareness. And so the daily habits of Ayurveda can be really important to you, especially if you want to feel supported for a change instead of always looking after others' needs. And especially if you know that your energy reserves don't have what it takes to get you through till Christmas, and you don't want that Thanksgiving, Halloween illness that visits every year. If you don't sleep well and wake up not feeling refreshed for a new day, they can be really, really beneficial for you. Or if you're confused about what to eat and you want your food to nourish you again. There's lots of wisdom from Ayurveda that can help to kind of solve this mystery of why it's different for everyone. We all have different needs. Okay, we went through a lot of stuff really quickly here tonight. And I don't normally recommend that you try and incorporate all three things at once. So for some, this might be way too much, and that's okay. Just listen to that voice inside of you, that really, really wise voice, and pick what resonates with you tonight. Which one seems easy and doable, that you can achieve success, and most importantly, is going to leave you feeling better each morning. So once you just take that one habit, just pick one, circle it, put a big star on it, so you can have that to focus on for the upcoming week. And there's something about putting pen to paper that really helps make it real. So find that one that you're going to focus on. Or perhaps you even want to rank them. Which one are you going to tackle first, and then second, and then third? And you'll probably have noticed that it's not rocket science, but you also know, likely from experience, that it's hard to change a habit. For me, it took understanding the whys behind why this is good. I needed to learn the science, but that's probably just me and my engineering brain kind of coming into the forefront. I also needed the support and the accountability of a group, knowing that there was someone there to understand and knowing that I was going to have to report on how it went. So peer pressure can be an amazing tool, especially when it's combined with acceptance and love. And I needed a guide to explain it, sometimes several times. It takes a lot to get through my thick brain sometimes. But it takes a willingness to commit and a willingness to stumble a few times. That's okay. That's natural. And it also takes that community where this is okay. So sense into that and feel supported by this group, by everyone that's on the line tonight and everyone that will listen to this in the future. And initially, I didn't know that I needed these things. I didn't know what I needed. Like you, I have likely heard much of this advice 1,000 times before. It's been offered to me, and I subconsciously declined it. I wasn't ready for it, or it wasn't offered in a structure that I could receive it. And I've noticed in myself and in our culture that valuing individuality, strength, and effectiveness often translates into doing things too fast and all alone. And then they're not effective at all. So I'm back where I started with the same problems and less confidence in myself to shift my habits and my life. So I realized the importance of community support and expert guidance by experiencing it in my own learning process and seeing its effectiveness for those that I work with. And so I'm offering that to you in different ways. And the easiest one is to schedule a 20-minute call with me. So in all this will probably take about 30 minutes of your life. And I don't feel it's dramatic to say that it could be all that you need to initiate a domino effect of positive change in your life. In this short conversation, you get to share where you're feeling stuck, and then we'll go through and utilize my years of coaching and support to help you see where that gap is and how to fill it. This is one of my favorite things to do, to spend one-on-one time with people who are ready to shift and people who just need support and witnessing to do so. So you get to schedule this free call just by going to that link that you see on the top of the screen. And sometimes this is truly all it needs, just going through what is your next step. That reaffirmation that there's a yoga studio starting up down the road, and you want to just tap into that. You want to have that push that, yes, just go to that 3 times a week. How often do you need to go? Start with once, and then build up to twice, and just build up from there. So Ali has just put the link to that in the chat box. So if you're on the computer, you can link to that directly to get to access that schedule and make that appointment for us to just chat together. And the second way for you to receive community support and expert guidance in your learning process is through an online group program that I've created called Nourish the Teacher, which is also totally fitting for parents, so don't be scared off by that. But it starts up in the fall, and I'm sharing what I've learned with 20 individuals who are ready to shift and change their habits to find greater ease, better balance, and to build up their energy reserves and just feel better all over. And so all the information for that is available at Flourish Yoga / Nourish the Teacher. And so the tips that we have talked about today are part of the plan. It's kind of the prep school, you could say. We'll have 10 weeks together in the program to tackle the 10 habits. And so the more you're able to focus on these 3 this month, the better set you'll be to add on another layer of wellness when that gets started, if you decide that that's the right thing for you. The course runs really similar to what we've just done tonight. Each week there is a learning webinar to watch, which is around 30 to 60 minutes. We go into a lot more detail on each habit, the whys, and several different ways to look at how it might relate to you. And then also into the theory of habit change and how to trick that amygdala of ours into accepting change. And these sessions are all pre-recorded, so you get to schedule that in wherever it fits in your schedule, whether that's your lunchtime retreat, whatever evening that works for you, or on the weekend. And there are worksheets to fill out each week to record where you're at and to work through what the next step is for you, just similar in nature to what we did tonight. And then we get together on a group call once a week, and you get to ask questions, share your successes, and get advice on what's tripping you up. So we're building a team, a community of people who are done with being tired and being overwhelmed and exhausted. A community of people who want more from life than just being too busy. We want to enjoy life. So if you're ready to take on the challenge and be part of this group force of change, then let's talk. Let's schedule that session so we can find out where you're at right now and what's the next best step for you right now. And there's always rewards for signing up. If you sign up early before the deadline, there's rewards so that you can get incentive pricing. And I also want to reward those who have support. So if you sign up as a group and get some of your team members on board, then you'll get a discounted price as well, because that makes the journey together so much more enriching if you have that support with you. But bottom line is, if you think that this is an amazing journey for you, then let's talk sooner rather than later. A link was sent out to you, or will be sent out to you, with some of the follow-up tools we talked about to make this easier, plus that link to sign up for a session with me. Okay, so let's get back to doing a little bit of sharing. Let me just check our time and where we're at. Oh, we're already over our time. Okay, so instead of doing this group Q&A, let's just get on that phone together and do some one-on-one. And this way we can really take that time to dive in deep to what's going on in your life. And sometimes just a 20-minute conversation can really identify some sticky spots. This might be all that you need. And it's an honor for me to be here for you and to help you work through this. But these strategy sessions can be a really key pivotal point. So just give yourself that time. Give yourself that opportunity. And for some, that's going to be enough, just to talk about it to somebody and know that there's someone there at your back. And then I can point you to some resources on the website or elsewhere to help you get through it, help you work it out. And others might be better served in that group situation with the live, ongoing support of a trusted guide and loving accountability from the community, plus lots of resources to pick and choose from. Okay. Are you ready to feel nourished and alive again? So let's get this started. And when we chat together in the next week, we can really move forward. All right. I'm going to say bye for now, but I will stay on the line for a few minutes if you have any questions and want to talk further about this.